Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls let it tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. We came for one man, forget my peace. We take the west side, take on the east. I'ma put him in the cage, never let out the. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys. Not so tough, but lines keep walking, yeah. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls, let it tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
Have a day, the internet. Oh, what a day for everyone yesterday. It was spectacular and sad to see. We will get into that in a moment, but I don't want to miss the mark. We need to talk about Simone Biles.
Please.
And that incredible achievement from one of our nation's greatest athletes. What a display yesterday. Really warmed the heart when you consider everything that she went through, both between her own ears and from outside forces with their own agendas. To see her deliver in that moment. And I would say cement her legacy, but for me it was already cemented. It really meant the world to me to see. And we need to give Simone Biles her flowers.
Before we start doing that, before we start celebrating, and hello, everyone. Hello, Juju, Chris, Jess,
hello,
Tony, Roy.
Hey, Izzy.
I want to know how you guys experienced that. So I watched it live, and I know I said the other day I talked about the men's team and how I watched that, and I thought I was nervous then. Holy cow, was I losing it? Like when she was on the beam and it was, oh no, she had a mistake on uneven bars, and now it's the most nerve-wracking event in all of sports. Don't you dare shake a little bit. Don't you dare have a jump scare. And imagine having a jump scare and then trying to remember the very next thing you're supposed to do. I was losing it.
You're not better than me for watching it live. You said that very dismissively.
Sorry.
Like, guys,
No,
I watched it live.
I just wanted to put the picture because it was 3 p.m.
I also watched it live.
Yeah. So as long as you watched it with maybe not knowing and had a little bit of nerves, then I would say you're on the same page.
I thought the Brazilian gymnast who came in second, that got the silver medal, Rebecca Andrade, she was incredible, and she put so much pressure on Simone Biles to not screw up, because going into the floor routine, it wasn't like it was, okay, she can mail it in, she's got the difficulty level, so even if she steps out or kind of flubs some of the landings, she'll be fine. No, she had to like really go in there with all the pressure on her, so it was actually like phenomenal television. And so I watched it live too, Izzy, on my way home from work. And then I watched the re-air on primetime later because I was like, I just got to do this. I got to do this again. This is
better.
It was kind of like we felt this locally with the Panthers. That the Panthers would have a big game and you'd want to see all the highlights on your phone. I kind of felt that a little bit last night. And yeah, even in the all-around team final, she has like this weird ability because she always qualifies so well. She's always going last, and no one has to deal with that same sort of pressure. So in the team, when you have all these other rotations going on, nothing else was going on. All eyes were on her, and it made something where she just had to play it safe. It made it a little bit more pressure filled. And yesterday we saw a moment that I was a little conflicted on. Understanding that what she went through at the last Olympics, I kind of talk out of both sides of my mouth on this one because I want to see her shut people up. I want to see her overcome all that adversity. I want her to overcome all that pressure. And anybody that had anything to say the last go-round has to shut up because she delivered in that moment. But also, I don't want her to encounter these triggers. I don't want her to be going through that inner battle, the mental aspects of the game. And thank God she overcame everything and delivered. It was a great moment, one of the all-time Olympic moments I think. It's kind of strange to have an all-time Olympic moment when you have, by consensus, such a large favorite because she is a dominant athlete. And you think back to some of the other great Olympic moments, both in Summer and Winter Olympics, they're usually underdog stories that resonate.
Right.
But I do think that there's an underdog story in that she wasn't necessarily chasing other gymnasts, though they brought it. She was also chasing what was going on in her own head and having to overcome that. And I think that's a story that resonates with everybody.
Well, to me, it was the perfect test. Like Jess said, not only did Andrade put the pressure on her, but she also had a mistake. So then it was, oh, okay, I need to take advantage of the fact that my difficulty is higher than everybody else's down the stretch in these last two events, and so I just need to be solid. But when you watched her come off the beam, I've never seen her more nervous. That was after she finished. And so I'm like, wow, she was nervous as all get out there. And that's part of the humanizing thing that I'd mentioned, watching the Netflix doc. I was like, wow, I thought she was this perfect athletic robot, but here she actually has feelings. And so I was wondering going into that floor, would those nerves spill over?
That's twice this week you've used as all get out. That's a very old saying.
Sorry.
I feel
As
like
hell.
he doesn't want to use HE double hockey.
Yeah,
As
I
hell.
don't.
As heck.
I'm unfamiliar with the gamesmanship of gymnastics because during Andrade's beam, she was being cheered on by Simone Biles. Like, is this Simone? Like, hey, you hear
You
me
think it's
cheering for you?
nefarious?
No, not. I'm just saying gamesmanship of like
know.
I am trying to build up this pressure right now.
Well, where do you guys stand on that? Because
I don't know
if I'm
much about the relationship.
If I'm on pommel horse and my teammates are yelling at me the whole time, I just want them to shut up, man. Do
Oh,
not
the
tell me
pommel
what I
horse
have
You
was
to
run
where
into this?
I
You run
noticed
into
it
this
too, where they
often?
were where they were like, "You got this, get the rhythm, you're good, you're in rhythm." On the pommel horse, I was like, oh my god, I would be like, Dad, shut up, stop yelling.
Seriously.
And the broadcaster was calling attention to it. You can hear Simone cheering her on. I don't know. I was just thinking, like, I think it was very innocent because they seem to have good interactions,
Yeah,
but it
they-
was just like,
Yeah, they know each other.
But
They've
I-
competed against each other a number of times, so I think it was like a genuine, like, supportive, like, you
but
got
also,
this.
But a little also like, I'm here. I'm Simone Biles, and I'm cheering for you at the
sure.
biggest moment of your life. I don't know. It just felt like a little bit of game.
The optics are good of it.
Right, it makes
it's
her
a
look
good
good.
look.
Right.
I don't think that was her intention. By all accounts, their relationship is a genuine one. But
But you know she's not really
Yeah,
rooting
but-
for her in that spot.
yeah, but that's me not
She
having-
wants her to fall though, secretly.
that's me not having enough connection points to the sport itself because I don't watch it often enough.
I doubt that she wants her to fall. I think she just wants to do everything better. It doesn't necessarily, you're not like necessarily rooting for someone to fail because like we said, like her difficulty level on everything is so much higher that the other opponents can do their routines perfectly and Simone Biles can still win.
They said Simone just has to be Simone here. And I'm like, okay, that's cool if I totally understand and I watch Simone every time out. But generally I'm following this year to year and I don't know what that means. Outside of watching other floor routines and realizing that, oh, this is a far more difficult routine, I would have preferred more from the commentary there just to kind of explain what was going on as someone that was just kind of following it year to year.
You know what I learned is that you're supposed to look at the end of the beam to keep your balance, and I just feel like that wouldn't work for me. I feel like I would still fall.
I watched a video of Suni Lee. I think she was maybe 6 or 7 on a homemade balance beam doing backflips. And man, would I be a proud parent if my kid was doing that at that age? I'd be like, I'm done.
Hey,
I'm done.
give it up for Suni Lee,
Yeah.
by the way.
So
Bronze
good.
medal after her health scares, everything. She had to give up gymnastics for a little bit and figure out what was going on.
That must have sucked.
Oh, wow.
She-
What am I going?
She did an amazing job closing that thing out on the floor routine, getting the bronze medal. What a day.
Yeah, it
I
was a
thought
Team
great,
USA
when
great
she was
moment.
on the
seeing-
bars, she showed her guts. Like she's just such a gamer, and like to come out in that battle for third, and it was who's going to be the cleanest. And you see her on floor, and there was no question she was going to be the best of those three. She just had it, and that was so much fun to watch the two of them go out there with that flag. And going back to Simone, just real quick, right before she was going to get on the floor, I was actually doing affirmations for her. I was saying, I've been here a million times. We've done this before. We've been the last floor exercise of a
Just
meet.
be Simone.
Just be Simone. And I was like, you know what? This is crazy. Like, I am not 7 years old anymore.
I was a big fan of what she's done with her platform in the lead up to it. Her post afterwards, once again, becoming a really leaning into mental health advocacy. I think she's going to be an icon. She already is an American athletic icon. She already was kind of a mental health advocacy icon, but strap a rocket to it now because by all accounts, we'll see, but this should be the end of her international career. We'll see. Maybe she might want to rise to the challenge of Los Angeles. We are seeing advancements in medicine, but historically she's basically a dinosaur in that sport in terms of international competition. But there was a 33-year-old competing for Brazil this year, so we're seeing new things in that sport. Maybe she rises to the challenge. She doesn't have anything else to prove, but now she can just be an advocate with this platform, and she is one hell of a role model, and I was just so damn proud of her.
They still have the individual events finals, and I think she's in a few of them.
It's kind of weird how we do this, right? Mm-hmm. I remember '96 and like the team medal was like the big deal there, and the iconic moments came from the team final there. It is kind of weird that we break this off. It kind of feels like the bigger events start everything, and then we just go to individual competitions where specialists have their moment. I think it would mean more. This is me telling the Olympics how to do their job. I think it means more if you have an already like silver medal winning, balance beam gymnast in the team competition, because you have that to attribute to that gymnast, and it just helps with the narrative.
I think it goes that way because if you're injured individually, then you hurt your team. So you start off with a team, and then you go with the more important one, which is the all-around. Hey, least important ones are the individuals, and if for whatever reason you're hurt or whatever, you can pull out of those. Not the worst.
Makes sense and is better logic than just mine of wanting better storytelling and therefore more drama.
Your hat's cracking me up, by the way, because 90% of the time, and this reminds me of a meme I saw yesterday, 90% of the time you're lamenting how shitty it's been in this country lately, and now look at that flag just beaming right off the top of your head.
Well, this is so I got IG targeted by New Era Caps. And it's a big IG target for like the Rob Lowe Patriots, because this is a basketball hat. I got a 3-pack. I have an Olympic tennis hat, I have an Olympic soccer hat, and I have an Olympic basketball hat. So and they're all different size. Like the tennis is a dad cap, the soccer is more like like your trucker style, and then this is your flat brim New Era snapback. So thank you for noticing the hat. And I'm very patriotic, and like, as we saw with some of the discourse, I've talked about like wanting to get a U.S. flag, but I'm worried about like what people might think of me, and I'm probably worried about that too much because.
So you're worried about what people think of you being patriotic?
Right, because one party has in this country that I think it's evident I don't agree with often, has co-opted patriotism, has basically made themselves a party of the flag. So
Democrats can't have an American flag in front of their house? That's
kind of like the feeling, even though I do have, like, especially during 4th of July, I love this country. I love what it aspires to. This might be naive, but I think what we're experiencing now in this timeline can be attributed to growing pains. It was pretty bad in the 60s. Like, people fight progress, and they've never had to fight progress with the internet, and that's going to make things a little bit more difficult when we get to artificial intelligence becoming more and more prominent and misinformation only becoming more and more prominent. I fear that our divisions will only grow stronger. But
are you going to write on this on the flag?
Yeah, I wish this hat said all those things.
So what does that? What does AI and stuff have to do with a flag in front of your house?
So what it means, and I apprate you challenging me on this a little bit.
Asking.
I'm honestly thinking like,
so long as there's no writing on it. Right?
If you want one, put one up. Who cares? Like, people are going to drive by and be like, "Oh, he's Republican."
Like, yeah.
Does that matter to you?
Somewhat. Especially after yesterday.
Only when it's on a truck do I think that. At a house, I'm always like,
that house is Republican.
No, a house, I don't think it.
If it's a gray flag, I already know.
If there's truck testicles and it's like a pole from the back of the bed,
they definitely voted for Trump. Yeah.
They're on their way to a Luke Combs concert.
I like the black and white ones where they start you with one color and then you can fill out the rest of the rainbow flag. Those are my favorites.
Yeah, it depends on.
It usually starts with blue, I think.
It depends on the stripes. Like, there's a whole lot of things. But look, I understand, and your perspective on this is a right one. I love my country. I love being American. I love our freedoms all around. And I think that should be focused on too.
Except for the internet, you're saying.
Freedom to be you. Well, I do think that there need to be checks and balances, and I think it's okay to admit that you're wrong. And let's take the natural pivot. I wanted to talk about some other things, but yesterday was a day for the internet. And I listened back to the post game, and while I was proud of myself for not totally showing my ass because I had read up on this a little bit more, I think my tone could have been a little bit better. But at that moment, I was already getting worked up at what I feared was going to happen several days ago, which is people are going to get this story wrong, the basic facts of this story wrong, and it's going to be used to fuel an agenda. So, Izzy, we have not gotten your thoughts on it. We got my thoughts on it yesterday. I'm curious how you experienced yesterday.
So we're talking about the two fighters that a lot of, whatever you want to call it, certain media members are flat out saying are men, or flat out saying are transgender, which there is no evidence that either of these women were born anything other than women. And the only thing that we're discussing here is elevated levels of testosterone. And so to me, and you want to talk about the two governing bodies, whether it be the boxing governing body and how they're not in charge currently. Well, there's a lot of corruption in that organization, and separating itself from the IOC, separating itself from that, I find totally fair. Obviously, they have different sets of rules. And in this situation, what is happening is people jumping all over the gender conversation. And this is not a transgender topic. And you see all the people that are jumping on it. This former swimmer named Riley Gaines from Kentucky, who has only continued to be famous because of this topic. She once tied Leah Thomas in a race, and Leah Thomas, if you can remember, is famous for being a very successful swimmer in college who also happens to be transgender. And this Riley Gaines person has taken that tie, I believe that was a fifth-place tie, into all this kind of right-wing discussion and turning this into a transgender conversation, saying a man is going to kill a woman in the ring when she's a swimmer. I don't know what she knows about boxing or combat sports. And it's all just become so typical of what all of these conversations become. It's not the actual discussion at hand, which has, again, nothing to do with transgender people because there's no evidence of that being part of the discussion, now just jumping in and making that the entire story. It bothers me that is the case. It bothers me when people jump in and have these discussions without any sort of information. But mostly what bothers me is that people are not going to change their opinions when you have these conversations, and therefore they almost seem pointless.
They don't seem like good faith discussions, especially when you check somebody on it and most people are just refusing to admit that they got it wrong, and then they just pivot to an intersex conversation, which I kind of check out on because I'm like, you were convinced this person had a penis 5 seconds ago, and now you're establishing a protocol for intersex combat sports competition. It should be noted that these two fighters, yes, there are two fighters that have this surrounding them, but the internet seized on one moment where an Italian fighter, who's quit before in a fight, by the way. This is not the first time this Italian fighter has done this. They seized on this one moment. These two fighters that have these failed gender tests around them have competed in the Olympics before. This Algerian fighter, and I want to underscore Algeria because of what the LGBTQ community goes through there. It is illegal. It is illegal to be a transgender in Algeria. They are borderline Sharia. They don't come out and say it, but their policy is borderline Sharia law. So you have these fighters that have competed before, and I think previously, if I read up on this correctly, they had one failed test with the previous governing body. They had passed all the tests before and met the threshold. They had this failed test. They were outgoing. They didn't provide any clarity on that, and these two fighters have had this hanging over them the entire time and now have been totally co-opted by a political conversation when this has – I saw J.D. Vance had a go at Kamala Harris. What Algeria does with its Olympic team has nothing to do with what's going on here. And the same thing with the opening ceremonies. Why are we making everything about us and everything political? It's the French opening ceremonies. It's Algerian boxing. Yes, you may be fearful of a dystopian future and this is Joe Biden's America. No, it's not. This is not an actual thing that is interfering with your life. And a lot of people just got it wrong. Jess, I saw you wanted to get in on this.
Yeah, so the gender verification test, I haven't found clarification on what that was, so I don't think we can say definitively like if it was elevated testosterone levels. Like this was done by, like Izzy said, a governing body of a sport that's no longer recognized by the IOC because of its absurd levels of corruption.
No, we did pull the curtain back a little bit and say like there wasn't clarity provided on this because they were an outgoing governing body.
And like you mentioned, her passport has her listed as female, and it would be against the law for her to be trans in Algeria. And
the entire country would have to be in on it.
Yeah,
Right.
One of the conservative talking points that I saw with people that have formed really strong opinions based on like an aggregated graphic tile was that, oh, you can manipulate a passport. Algeria ain't playing ball that way. That goes against their general philosophy on these things.
And for people in the United States and for famous children's book authors to just take this and co-opt it, actually, like, it makes this very dangerous for her. And I feel so terrible for this woman that this should be an event that she gets to compete in and like feel proud of herself for representing her country. And she's also talked before about how becoming a boxer was hard because of the stigma against women competing in boxing when she was growing up. And so it's like she's fought sexism to get to this point, and now she's fighting this like trans panic like scare for coming from a lot of personalities and people in a country that she's not even from, like trying to impose our culture war on her and her competition. Like, it's very frustrating. I feel very bad for her. Like, the whole situation is just like awful to watch unfold. And like the entire, like watching like all of these different American celebrities like tweeting about it yesterday, like just made me feel like just
shout out to the
gross.
IOC then for standing by them and speaking openly, saying, "Hey, this is not a gender issue. These are two fighters who we're saddened that they have to go through this." Even the Italian fighter who quit in that boxing match, what she said in the ring is different than what she said outside of it, where she was just like, "Oh, it's not for me to decide," where she was in the ring sort of implying something different, saying it was unfair, reportedly. So I think the whole conversation is unfair. I think obviously we zero in on it because it is the Olympics, and it's, you got these so-called experts just telling us how to feel on this. And the thing that bothers me the most is they find that they're experts on humanity in general. Like how many years of humanity have we had that these folks are like, no, we've got it all figured out. Nothing evolves. Nothing changes. We know everything. It's absolute nonsense.
I do want to applaud the IOC for their statement. I was a little frustrated yesterday because there was kind of an absence of that statement. And you could have seen, if you were following the Olympics, you could have seen this story coming. This was something that people were talking about. You just didn't have the moment that I was genuinely fearing, which was, a moment that could be aggregated, that was social media friendly. A fighter quits because she got punched in the face by someone that failed a gender test. You're just licking your chops if you're a bad faith aggregator. And also the thing about aggregation is you put your graphic tile up on your social media accounts and you run with Logan Paul's initial thoughts. You don't post the apology. You don't post where he literally says, oopsie.
I didn't even know he apologized.
Yeah, he apologized. A lot of people got this wrong, but it's not about that. Then they want to have a discussion. Look, guys, we don't have all the answers, and I pride myself on someone that likes to have all the answers at all times. We are the first generation really tasked with formulating opinions on the fly with this stuff. You can miss the mark. You can pivot. You can change your mind on stuff. You could say, hold up, I don't have all the data. Presently, I'm of the mind, and this may shock you, when it comes to combat sports, I think biologically there are things in neck muscles and shoulder muscles that prepare you for taking a hit. I think that there are thresholds that should be followed there. When it comes to other sports, I'm still waiting on on more data points, but also this really isn't as big of an issue as many suggest. Not a lot of people encounter this, and we should get back to good faith discourse, but I think the toothpaste is out of the bottle. And it's hard to go back right now.
I need Juju's confirmation on this. For everybody who tweets something to the effect of protect our daughters when it comes to this subject, I want them to tweet every single time something happens where their daughter could be inspired by the Olympics, right? I want them to chime in on the good stuff and not this thing where they're only getting half the information, because there's a lot of good stuff for our, everybody's daughters here in the Olympics. You're going to focus on that where you have bad information? That's crazy.
It's a Great contribution. It was. I'm sure you manage the social media accounts, and everything was coming in fast, furious, and totally outsized. And it was depressing. There were some encouraging points in that. There were some people that admitted that they got some things wrong. There were walkbacks, but people are convinced to this day. That's the way that social media works. They see something that already confirms their bias, they turn and walk away, and they don't want to acknowledge the truth of the matter.
So I just had an experience here in the outside area here, the common area, that I feel like maybe Dan has a lot. But I just chuckled to myself because I saw on the whiteboard, I just saw a subject that said shower beers, and I didn't see anybody's name attached to it. And I immediately thought, oh, that's got to be a Chris Cody topic because, for two reasons. One, he's had a couple of shower-related, anecdotes that are funny. But also, I just thought he messed it up and he meant beer showers, like, because we're talking Olympics. So I just thought he inverted that and called them beer showers. But we're actually talking about shower beers. Am I right, Chris?
Apparently. I mean, this is a thing Mike was talking about before the show, and he, like you, assumed that I was a regular. And I've never done it. I've never had a beer in the shower, and apparently
it's
magical.
Dude thing that I'm just
This is
not
the most
familiar
normal
with?
thing in the world. It was born out of seeing all the Finnish players for the Panthers taking the Stanley Cup into a sauna. Some of them were having beers, and we naturally pivoted. Like, Chris saw that and was like, that's kind of a weird place for a beer. And we're like, oh, no, you've never had a shower beer? And he was like...
The photo made it seem like Barkov was like, hey, boys, 9 p.m. tonight, sauna.
You've never, like, done something
unclothed.
That's what they do in Finland.
Sure,
That's,
they
that's
were all
just what they do.
It's a very Scandinavian concept. Like, the sauna is huge there, and it's starting to come over here with body temp and people seeing all the science there.
Gotta wear the hat, though. The hat's very important.
Scandinavians have been on it, but I imagine you've done something athletic and immediately after had a beer, and that beer just hits different because of, your pores are open, your blood is pumping.
No, I've always thought of it as like a pregame thing. Like, I'm getting ready to go out, so I'm going to have a beer while I shower.
Really?
And start getting ready to go out.
I think that I could be wrong here, but I do think that the alcohol hits you a little bit more because especially you're either dehydrated or you're in the process of being dehydrated. So if you're less hydrated, alcohol hits you harder.
So wait, is
I
this
can't
like
be the only guys? Don't leave me on an island here.
I think
this
I've
is a
had
fairly,
hundreds of shower beers,
Yeah.
but they're
Can you
hundreds.
explain it for
This
me,
is a
Cody?
fairly
Hundreds.
easy.
Yeah, I've had
this is a fairly
hundreds
easy
of shower
concept.
beers.
freaking having water particles land in
You've
your
never
beer.
had a beer
I mean,
hit you harder because you've been more dehydrated?
That's what I mean. All these
Water particles. It's a
Yeah.
shower,
I
buddy.
need
It's a very refreshing type of beer.
Yeah,
The shower beer's up there.
my
Tony's
dirty
had
body,
hundreds?
water just ricocheting off me.
Whoa. No one's telling you to put the can on the bottom of your tub while you're showering. The can goes up high on a shelf.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been in the ocean with the can, right? You know how
I
to hold
have.
it up. But Tony, hundreds
It's
of
a nice
shower
little
beers.
sip.
What's the
I've been in the
scenario?
ocean
So
with some cans.
figure. All right, since I turned 21, figure you go out twice or three times a week for 6 years between college and a couple years out of college. You have a
Carry
couple
the
hundred
one,
shower beers. You know what I
That's a
mean?
lot.
You start getting ready with that first Miller Lite in the shower.
Wait,
right?
can you go do this math on the whiteboard
hold on.
outside? I would like to actually calculate how
I've had a
many
Miller
shower
Lite
beers
script
you've had.
denied because they were like, talk about some of your great experiences with Miller Lite, and they're like, well, the shower beer take is a bit odd, but I like the shower beer.
I'm not ripping it. I just have never done it.
It's not like I'm letting the beer run off my chode. Like, that's not how this goes. Like there's a protocol to this.
I'm not even sure what body part that is. I think I used to not feel the whole
the gooch.
beer after the beer after the athletic event or whatever, because I was like, I'm dehydrated. I don't want to get further dehydrated. And then I had my first beer after playing a basketball game.
Right?
And I was like, this definitely hits differently. It's super, like, I don't know, all those bubbles hitting your throat.
Same
just
concept.
Totally different, right? But in the shower?
Dude, you kind of skip the whole like athletic part of it, and you get all the benefits.
Your pores are open because it's a hot shower.
Yeah,
unless you're
it's
Tony,
hotter.
who's on
You're
the
more
cold shower.
dehydrated. I'm telling you, it just connects in
Child's
different
play.
ways.
Try a shower bong rip or some shower meth.
Shower meth. You really up the ante, sir.
No, you don't drink where you shit, Mike. I mean,
I don't shit in the shower, Roy.
no, you shit in the room where the shower is.
You're like maybe some other people shit in that room, but I've got a designated shitting toilet in my home, and it's in my office.
I'm with Roy. I've had a shit beer.
You have?
I've had a shit beer.
Like, okay, open minds, everybody. We're not judging. How is it?
Yeah, it's just nice. It's right here. You put it on the little counter right next to my toilet seat, sitting there, get my scroll on, pull a beer over.
Make me a promise. Since we're not really judging here, you've never had one. Why don't you try the experience? Try having a shower beer.
I'll videotape it.
Instagram live it.
I will.
And then when
Roll
you
the
get out of the
dice.
shower, Chris, and you haven't washed your calves or anything lower, you should dry yourself with a white towel and see how dirty you actually are.
Jason Kelsey said that it's okay that I do that, by the way.
I've seen the graphic on the internet about like the places that
Hotspots.
get that you have to take care of.
Zagak.
I gotta tell you, like, it's if I do something super athletic like play soccer or I'm getting sweaty, I give myself a full body scrub
After
down.
golf, I'm scrubbing my ankles because I have dirt all over my legs.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about a normal shower where I haven't really done much.
think
I'm
you're
getting all
good.
the hot spots.
I'm with you.
Oh God, I can't believe we're rehashing this.
telling you.
I'm with him.
I'm right
Were
on
you by
this.
yourself? I will support
In the
you.
shower?
No,
Oh.
in the argument, in the discussion.
So when you
because I will
used to-
support you. I don't wash the back of my calves every time either.
When you used to walk
a safe
from
space, Mike.
here
Thank
to the
you.
Brightline station, there's construction everywhere. There's dust going through the air. You're walking with shorts through all of that. You go home.
What if I have pants?
I'm good. No, the pants are all right.
So I got
not a
pants
good
right
look
now.
for
I'm
you,
not
Z. It's
telling
not a
you
good
right
look.
now. I'm not washing my kneecaps. I'm letting the water take its course there.
To America's people, I was taught one way to wash, and that's the thorough way. You
Yeah.
did me.
Do you moisturize when you're done showering?
I
And
get
are
very-
you, are you moisturizing dirty legs?
I don't moisturize my legs. I moisturize my face. I get very dry after a shower. I get like eyebrow druff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a real hot spot, and I get a little druff on my mustache. So those are hot zones. I get a little aquifer on there, little special moisturizer after that. I have these red cheeks. I have like a skin regimen.
Can I just say, skin regimen, like, I have so much more respect for women who do this almost their entire lives, basically from the time they become an adult, because ever since I've gotten into the whole skin regimen, it is a lot of work and a lot of money, mind you. But you mentioned the lotion on your legs, on your dirty legs, Jess. It has become my shower ritual. I get out of the shower, and it's a combo stretch and put the lotion on, because you put the leg completely parallel to the floor.
You put the lotion on its skin. Yep.
And then you do lotion, but you're also getting a good stretch in there. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
So it's like, it's a 2-for-1, especially in the
do it
morning.
You gotta love the skincare industry that's like convinced women, hey, if you don't start your skincare regimen by the time you're 20, it's too late. Which is not true, by the way. It's never too late. And I see 13-year-olds at Sephora now trying to buy this like drunken elephant skincare stuff, and they're going crazy for it, and it's like $80.
I have bad feet, and my wife recently purchased this thing that shaves off the dead skin off the bottom of her feet. And wow, I had no idea. I had basically an anthill of dead skin on the bottom of my heel. It's pretty gross, but it made everything so much easier. And then I started moisturizing the bottom of my feet. The problem kind of went away. I just have to stay on top of it.
Really?
It's amazing.
Wow.
Were you aware of this?
Life hack.
Yeah.
Moisturize and exfoliate.
Yeah. Boys, steal that from your wives. I'm telling you right now, especially if you got athlete's feet. We're going to onboard David Sampson and Adnan here, and they have a top 5 today that I already took issue with. We'll explain that in a moment, but Adnan is an Emmy Award-winning host for MLB Network. David Sampson hosts Nothing Personal as baseball chops. You all know that. So I'm going to start with a baseball question, and really something that's sad, which is Mike Trout. He's barely played. This is one of the recognized as arguably his generation's greatest baseball player, and we're seeing his body betray him. Is this a deal where a change of scenery will all of a sudden make him healthy? What is going on here with Mike Trout? Adnan, we begin with you.
Adnan, you're muted.
Adnan, I'm going to take it right back, and I'm going to begin with David now. David, you have the floor.
Here's the problem with Mike Trout. It is no longer a situation where you say, oh, he's just injury prone. It's going to get better. He's played one game after the All-Star break in 3 of the last 4 seasons. Think about that. That would be a stat of the day. So we don't have to do it because I'll do it. Stat of the day.
So where is
one
this
game?
Going? Where is this going with Mike Trout? If you were,
it means that Mike Trout's now closer to Don Mattingly than he is to one of the best players who ever played.
So give me the front office opinion. If you're doing an eval, let's say you have a different budget and you're approaching this much differently than you did from your time down here in South Florida. You guys were buyers occasionally. The Delgado move was a good one. You guys went for it occasionally.
You criticized me for all the buys we did where we traded away prospects who ended up being good.
Dude, let me tell you, like my favorite era of Marlins baseball were the few years after you won the World Series where you went for it. You made the LaDuca trade, the great trade with the Dodgers. You went after Delgado. You guys were competing for it, and that's all I really ever wanted from it. I gave you some credit there, but geez, all right, stop taking it so.
How about
your show's
Carlos
called Nothing
Lee?
Personal. Yeah.
Remember Carlos Lee?
I do remember. And you guys, that was a good example. Like, I'm good with you guys going forward and failing. So separate yourself from how you used to do business, because we just highlighted the success. You did a lot of sales and
Terrible,
capitulating.
both ways.
So let's say you're the Mariners, all right? A team that's right there. You got a good pitching staff. You definitely need a bat. And say this is next season. How do you evaluate a talent like Mike Trout? You have his contract, obviously, but where do you project this player? You just mentioned Don Mattingly, and that would give you pause, certainly.
Well, Don Mattingly was a certain Hall of Famer, except he just couldn't be healthy. He hurt his back. And I think about $213 million over 6 years. And I asked this question on Nothing Personal. I ask it of any baseball fan who loves baseball. Would you sign Mike Trout to $213 million over 6 years right now?
Did you hear Ed Amber check his microphone?
I apologize. David was making an excellent point. I just want to double check a little quiet check. Like, yeah, okay, I am here as well.
We heard.
Listen, I'm with Sampson. He's Don Mattingly now, man. 3-time MVP, and yet now you got these injuries. He's, I guess he's a Hall of Famer because how many 3-time MVPs are there? But to your point, Mike, last offseason, remember there was rumors, stuff being leaked out. David remembers this. The Angels basically saying, hey, we wouldn't be averse to trading Mike if he was open to that, but he has all the cards in his hand, like wink, wink, Mike. If you want to wave this thing, and everyone says, look at the Phillies. He's from Millville, New Jersey. He grew up a Phillies fan, South Jersey. We know Dave Dombrowski wants to buy John Middleton. So the time to make a move for Mike Trout would have been a season ago for the Phillies. Now he's really damaged goods. Like I feel horrible for Mike, and I feel horrible for the Angels. This guy has only played 48% of games over the past 4 years going into this year, and he barely played this year. It's really frustrating.
Did we just wake you up? Like, let's be honest here. You had the computer troubles.
You battled through phlegm.
You got showing is not.
The energy's there. Energy's there, but the phlegm is also there.
What did you do in the shower
I have
this
young
morning?
kids up since I've been up since 7, but I look disheveled. So I didn't just wake up, but I look like hell because I've been up since 7. I have young kids, and I've kicked them out. I'm in a hotel in Boston. I said, you guys have to stay outside here. I'm on the Dan Le Batard Show. But no, I did not just wake up, but I look like hell.
They're just in the hallway.
All you have to say was kids.
No, they're not. I'm
Loitering?
just joking, coding. I gave them to my wife. They're down having breakfast. I'll show you the eggs. We have eggs over here. We've got some.
Let me see those eggs. Hotel eggs? It can't be
Great scrambled hotel eggs.
there we go. Got cheese on that?
Fantastic.
Before we get into the top 5, which is top 5 motion picture soundtracks, which has already got me fired up, I want to talk to you about the 90s in general. I am revisiting the 90s right now, seeing some movies that I had maybe seen once in my life or bits and pieces of.
I hope you're going to say Wild Things, Mike, but go ahead.
I'd watch Wild. I don't need a refresher course on Wild Things. I burned Wild Things out through my most formative years. But I revisited films this week like Crimson Tide, which I gave 5 stars. That was an absolute banger of a movie. I watched Backdraft, which, doesn't quite hold up, but it's got an unbelievable cast. And I started watching, because I wasn't aware of this, Backdraft 2, which was made in 2019. There was a sequel in which many of the cast reprise their roles. So I wanted to ask you generally, how do you feel about the 90s? Because if you look at the Best Picture nominees, you can make a very strong argument for the 90s being the golden age of cinema.
Listen, the 70s for me, Mike, is the best ever, and to be specific, it's 1967 to 1977, Bonnie and Clyde, The Graduate, the first 2 Godfathers, Taxi Driver, Mean Streets, etc. But you're right, the 90s is outstanding because that was that great indie wave, and you had Pulp Fiction and Fargo and Secrets and Lies and, The Big Lebowski, and like filmmakers taking chances and studios willing to do that. Now, this era right now kind of reminds me of the 80s. It's a lot of recycled movies and a lack of inspiration and superhero movies, etc. So 90s movies I have a real soft spot for, man. Those are some of my favorite films. Magnolia back in 1999, Goodfellas in 1990. I'm sure David agrees with me. The 90s was a great decade.
I can't imagine that you think the 80s were full of recycled movies. Just start and end with John Hughes. Every one of those was original. Every one of those was all about what it is to grow up. And if you're an 80s child, I don't think you view the 80s as recycled at all.
It was the sequel generation. You can ask anybody who knows anything about movies. The 80s was when they had these big budget movies, blockbusters. They make 1, 2, look at Rocky. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, this was the era of the 80s of recycled sequels. The 90s was more original filmmaking, Miramax and the rise of Harvey Weinstein, etc. We all know about Harvey off the field, horrible guy. But as far as cinematically speaking, the 90s was a real boon. I can't believe you think the 80s was like a rich, fertile era. There's no way that was. You ask anybody, 70s and 90s, great. 80s, no.
I've become a real admirer. I was when he was with us. Tony Scott tragically took his own life. I'm revisiting a lot of his films right now because I love generally the narratives that he established, especially with action movies. He found a way to make you care about characters in ways that action movies all too often miss the mark. I think Man on Fire is a premier example of how to get you invested in characters and still have a kick-ass action movie. Crimson Tide, when people recount all the great movies that Tony Scott did, I think should be possibly regarded at the very top of the heap because you have Tony Scott at the top of his game. You have Zimmer scoring at the top of his game. You have Denzel and Gene Hackman, who might be the most underrated actor of his generation because the roles that he chose were interesting in that he never really wore prosthetics. He never really went for big historical Academy cash grabs.
Are we talking Denzel or Hackman?
We're talking about Hackman in particular because
Mississippi Burning.
Yeah,
Hackman
Terrible name for a
generally
good actor.
in his career avoided prosthetics, avoided going for roles that you would deem Oscar bait, and he still knocked it out of the park. And you had two actors that were playing off one another in spectacular ways, and I think it holds up, especially with everything in the news stream. And then I look back at the year that was 1995, and I saw in the 96 Academy Awards, Babe got nominated for Best Picture, which Babe is a fine movie. Crimson Tide did not. It seemed as though Crimson Tide kind of got left by the wayside as all these other movies. Braveheart won that year. I think Crimson Tide's actually better than Braveheart. Crimson Tide is an incredible movie. You should all rewatch it. I'm begging for you guys to have a good opinion, a favorable opinion.
I love this crusade towards Crimson Tide.
I get like this about movies. I get like this about Heat. I get like this about Collateral. When I find a movie that still resonates and connects and
He's been
everything
talking about it
is
all
great,
morning. He can't get off Crimson Tide.
Crimson Tide. You guys love it? 5 stars?
I happen to love Crimson Tide, but I do have it behind Braveheart. And although now looking back, I try not to watch Braveheart or think about Braveheart, but at the time, I had that well above.
Got like
I
3
was not a
cents.
Babe fan personally.
That'll do,
I think it's because I'm kosher.
Gene Hackman's best role, clearly The Birdcage.
He was great. Gene Hackman was in a mid-90s heater. You have Denzel like realizing that, like I've gotten this I've gotten the Academy attention. Like, let me go for biggest movie star on the planet status, see if that's achievable. And I think everybody did a bang-up job here. All right, so let's get to
I'm with
you,
Mike. No Way Out.
Yeah, No Way Out, great. Listen, Unforgiven, obviously. If we want to go French Connection, the conversation. I'll say this, Mike, for Crimson Tide. There's some incredible scenes of Denzel Hackman just shouting at each other, like Hall of Fame shouting. Gene Hackman is A+.
A lot of racial tension that by the end, throughout the movie is subtle, and then by the end becomes a little bit more overt. But I think you can make an argument in terms of like workplace dramas. This is a great film. There's a lot of great supporting cast. Gandolfini understands the assignment, and is seemingly too excited for it. It's just a great film. All right, the top 5s here. We'll begin with Samson. That's how we do it, right, Chris? We do.
You.
Yeah. I have a real bone to pick with this, and I'll say it on the front end. The soundtrack has to be an original motion picture soundtrack. There are a lot of great soundtracks, especially in the 90s. Here, let me get my argument off the ground.
Preemptive crapping of our list before Samson and I've even spoken.
Well, because I've made my own list because I was aware of the loopholes that you guys used.
I love the preemptive crap.
I did it right before the show. Your soundtracks are more compilation albums. And I think an original motion picture soundtrack has to support the art, has to be created for the film itself. Original music meant to supplement the film. And now you can get music from the time that helps supplement a movie, and that could be great. But I think for this discussion, you have to provide that caveat.
And I think that you could have had a top 5 that was of top 5 original movie songs or soundtracks. That's great. But this top 5 is top 5 movie soundtracks.
All right, David, let's get underway. But leave me enough time. Leave me the 40 seconds to do the OSTs.
I'll go right through it and just tell you number 5, Across the Universe. Across the Universe, it's Beatles songs, but it's sung. Wait a minute, this counts for you, Mike. It's sung by Jim Sturgis and Evan Rachel Wood.
They were great.
So I assume that counts.
No, it's a great. I love the movie, love the soundtrack. Not an original motion picture soundtrack.
That was a movie?
These are Beatles songs. It's more of a.
So it has to be songs sung by people, originally written, like the Dirty Dancing soundtrack. The only one that counts is Hungry Eyes.
David, I know your top 5. You have a ton of jukebox musicals in there. It's just like doesn't count, in my opinion. Doesn't count.
He's going to hate our lists.
I don't care. Number 4, The Big Chill.
Awesome. No, give him a big horn. Big Chill's awesome, David. Go ahead.
There's only one horn.
I'm not even going to defend it.
No
I will
talent.
defend number 3, though.
Incredible soundtrack.
Number 3 is a movie called Harold and Maude. Harold and Maude is a movie with Ruth Gordon and a young boy whose name escapes me, Adnan. Like Bud, his name is Bud somebody. It's about an octogenarian in a relationship with a younger boy, not inappropriate. And the soundtrack is Cat Stevens. And it is a fantastic movie, fantastic soundtrack.
Hal Ashby, the director, very underrated. Obviously made a lot of great 70s films. It's a good call on
Bud Cort. Bud Cort was his name.
Right. That's right.
Not that old. Number 2. This has original songs, Mike, so this wins. Moulin Rouge. It's got some mashups, but it does have some songs written just for
That's
the
a
movie.
jukebox musical. It's a jukebox music. They're singing "Smells Like Teen Spirit." What are you doing?
What about Come What May?
Yeah. There are some there are some original songs on there, but largely that is what is referred to as a jukebox musical.
I don't think that you can come up with a top 5 list of soundtracks that are all original songs, the entire soundtrack.
David,
and number 1,
like the most romantic part of the movie, they're singing Elton John's "Your Song." Like,
I know, I love that. I watch that scene over and over again.
Do the can.
And number 1, Jim Broadbent, I love you. Number 1, Almost Famous.
Oh, yeah.
That's not disputable. Stillwater, that's some original songs.
Yes. But it's also derivative of the time, and there's plenty of songs that Cameron Crowe was a fan of that's in there, so it's more of a compilation soundtrack, in my opinion. But anybody would suggest, if you're doing just a catch-all for motion picture soundtracks, that would be up there in anybody's list. And it's a great film.
It's my number 1. It's my number 1
your favorite
film
movie.
of all time.
Yeah, it's your favorite movie ever.
And I think it counts because it does have.
Do you have the Stillwater T-shirt?
I do.
Where Billy Crudup is just like in the only one that's
and
in
he's
focus.
in the front.
Yeah. All right, go ahead, Adnan. Leave me 40 seconds, okay?
I will, Mike. Don't worry. You're going to hate my list, too. Philip Seymour Hoffman, Lester Bangs, all-time great. Number 5. It's basically just one song where they play it over and over. Radio Raheem. It's Do the Right Thing. Fight the Power. Over and over the soundtrack. Blazing. In 1989, the soundtrack, the anthem of the summer. David, great song, great soundtrack.
Not known for its soundtrack, though.
Number 4, Train Spotting.
Also not known for its soundtrack.
It is. Iggy Pop
great
right out
soundtrack.
of the gate. Lust for Life, Mike. I need that's great soundtrack.
Lust for Life's not written for Train Spotting.
Correct, but it is a great soundtrack, which I knew you'd back me up on. Lou Reed also in the soundtrack. Number 3, you're going to hate this one. This is a jukebox musical. I'll agree with that one. American Graffiti. Great 60s, 70s music. Awesome soundtrack. Number 2, I'm completely with David. Motown for Life. Big Chill. Awesome movie. Jeff Goldblum loves the Motown. And number 1, Mike's going to hate it. People are going to love it, though. I'm telling you right now. 30th anniversary, one of the great films of all time. A great soundtrack from Quentin Tarantino. It made Neil Diamond cool. Pulp Fiction, number 1.
Neil Diamond made Neil Diamond cool. All right, so just let's
Red
get that
Sox
out of the way.
Made Neil Diamond cool.
No, Neil Diamond was Saving Silverman might have made Neil Diamond cool.
When you compare number 1s here, it's clear that David won because Almost Famous is about that soundtrack. Pulp Fiction is not about that soundtrack. It just happens to have a few good songs.
If all the chips are
Not
stuck
more
together,
than a few good songs. Iconic soundtrack. Go ahead, Cody. Go ahead.
it's one nacho if they're all stuck together.
No Beverly
Mike, I
Hills
need
Cop.
your list badly because I can't think of 5 movies that would qualify with your rules.
All right.
Non-Disney.
So, non-Disney division, because we were having a big argument about how Phil Collins absolutely killed it with Tarzan. And I decided that if I included Disney in this, it would all be Disney soundtrack. So that's for a topic for another day.
But before you give your list, Mike, I really hope you have one which is all just like orchestral music. If it's all just Hans Zimmer score, I'll love it. Go ahead.
Ooh, there are some really good. We'll do scores another day.
Okay,
Number
scores
5.
another time.
Number 5, Grease.
Tell me more.
I got chills. They're multiplying.
They're multiplying.
So for number 4, this Cape Crusader had so many great soundtracks that I wore out when I was a kid. So I had to basically decide one Batman song, one Batman album to eliminate the genre. I was torn between Batman 89, Batman and Robin, but I settled on Batman Forever as the number 4.
Interesting. Okay.
Number 3, super problematic. Let's not stay here, but Space Jam was an absolute heater. Number 2, underrated. Black Panther OST. And number 1, Saturday Night Fever. Shame on you for not having it.
Spacious watching, Get Rich or Die Trying, Above the Rim, Juice, Bottle of Black and Black Panthers.
Wow.
Above the rim, great one. Attaboy, Juju.
See you.
So, Mike, I want to get into basketball, Olympic basketball with you because you're wearing the hat. But I had just gotten a text during the break from my buddy Warren, and all it said was, shower beers are amazing. And then I turned back to this math that Tony was doing. And speaking of amazing, all right, I want Tony to explain, right? But when you get to the part about how often you hang out or nights per week, I want you to pause for me, okay?
Okay.
But give me the math on you figuring out how many shower beers you have had since, and we're just going to keep it this way, since you've turned 21 years old.
Yes, of course, because you can only drink after.
Of course, even in
you
the
turn
shower,
21 years
the
old.
rules are you can only
21
drink
and over.
at
Yeah,
21.
exactly. So prime going out years 21 to 27. So we're given a 6-year sample here of going out. I feel like we could agree though. Normally, college years are the biggest years of going out where you're going out multiple
General
nights a week.
consensus,
In theory,
but,
yes.
but Izzy definitely
It varies.
put
Definitely
that
outliers. There
theory
are outliers.
No,
to the
Izzy's
test.
an outlier. Again, we do this for the average, not the outliers. So 52 weeks in a year last time I checked.
Right.
We've got about 2.5 nights out per week.
Pause.
Okay.
You're talking, first of all, every single week. That rule, you mean your weekend already booked. Every single week from 21 to 27, you're going out every single weekend and then one other night?
2.5 is key because Wednesday was Boogies, Thursday was Grove.
Thank you.
And then you had your weekends too. Like,
also, you had Wing It Wednesdays at Flanny's.
Yes.
Zero
Tumbleweed
exceptions.
Tuesdays.
Every
Wait, going to
single
Wing It
weekend.
Wednesday counts as going out?
Oh,
Yeah,
Flanny's
because
counts as going out.
because you're having beers.
Yeah, you're slamming
Okay, so this is like you're counting going out as any social gathering where you're having a drink, not like
Right.
going to a
Right.
club.
I'm with
You
Jess. I
describe
think
going
of
out?
pre-gaming as a major event, right? If I'm drinking in the shower, I better be staying out till 5 a.m.
No, I'm not. I don't drink in the shower to pregame. I drink in the shower because I find that beer enjoyable.
Okay.
Most
This is
enjoyable.
this is on the basis of pre-gaming.
We
though.
fundamentally disagree on the premise of shower beers, and that's
From
fine.
us.
For
But
the
again-
sake of Tony's argument, it's
Yeah.
a pre-game
Yeah.
shower beer.
I do it because I like it.
There's more math
Yeah,
involved
you
here
like-
too, though.
Tony likes it too.
I'm getting in the weeds here,
presumably.
but Tony, is it 21 through 27 or stopping at 27?
Stopping at 27,
Okay,
so
if you
21 through
okay,
27. It's the
okay,
same
so
thing.
Prime
Because if it's
range.
through 27, it's actually 7 years, and you got an extra year there. If you do the
Okay,
math.
well, I did it
Math.
to 27.
Okay,
so
so
6
you're
years.
stopping at 27.
Yeah, so we got
Okay.
6 years somewhere
Back
here.
out of the weeds.
All
Your
right.
26th Eve birthday, where you turn 27, is the last night.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
So
So
again-
you're not born 1 year old.
Right, exactly.
Although
Born
some people consider like the 9 months that you were in the womb.
52 weeks,
Republicans.
2.5 nights out per week again. Friday, Saturday, but then you can also mix in a Thursday, Wednesday, Monday, depending on what the situation was. We minus 2 weeks out if you're sick, right? Something else happens.
I love this.
You know, like you have to have a buffer of 2 weeks where you're not at your A game going out, right?
Otherwise, that's crazy.
Exactly.
And
That's
a
too
round
much.
number for you. 50 easier to multiply with.
I see what you're
I don't know
doing,
what
Jess.
that's supposed to mean. But so we've got an average of about, remember, 1.25 shower beers per week. So not every time I'm going out am I having a shower beer.
Shout out to the squiggly equal signs. You don't see that many more times after like college.
Exactly.
I'm
So
definitely paying attention.
So 1.25 shower beers per week on 2.5 nights out per week. So we may not be having a shower beer every time we go out, but we're averaging about 1.25 shower beers per week.
So there are
That's an
times
impressive
you're
number.
going to have more than one in the
No,
shower.
No,
There-
that's
there's
half the
sometimes-
time, guys. If he goes out 2.5 times a week and he's only
Per
having
week.
1.25 shower beers a week, that means half the time he goes out during the week he's having a shower beer.
That's an incredible cadence, by the way. I look at a shower beer as a treat. This is something that only happens a handful of times a year
Let
for
the
me.
subject turn to shower beers, and all of a sudden a mathematician over there, Chris Cody.
You're having 60 shower beers a year, give or take?
So we're looking at don't jump ahead.
I've never had that many in my life.
So we've got about 50 weeks per year that we're going out. Obviously, we minus the 2 weeks, so we're at 50 weeks per year, at about 2.5 nights out per week, right?
Okay.
Which gives us the possibility for 125 shower beers.
Okay.
Okay, we divide that by what we have an average of per week on beers, which is 1.25 shower beers per week, with 125 possibilities of shower beers.
But why didn't you just multiply 50 by 1.25?
Yeah.
Because I had to
Doesn't
show
have look as impressive.
exactly. Thank you.
It's a beautiful mind. It's not just two equations.
Exactly. I can't. You want me to put just 600? Is that what you want? You just wanted me to write 600?
whole
Yeah.
board over here.
No, that's not how we
A
do
man's
things.
showing his work.
Okay, thank you, Chris. 125 shower beer possibilities to
SPBs.
100. Yes, SPBs. Thank you. 1.25 shower beers per week equals about roughly 100
Super
shower
low
beers per year. Now we multiply 100 shower beers per year on average by 6 years that we did 21 to 27. We're looking at
7 if it's through 27.
Yep. 600 shower beers over a 6-year span. Again, that's not every time you're having a shower beer when you go out. That's 1.25 shower beers per the 52 weeks per the 6 years.
I'm a little confused because I thought we were going to you on why the shower beer just hits better.
How many calories in a Miller Lite?
95.
Can we go back? How did you get the 100
Per 12,
number?
how many ounces? 12?
12.
Tony,
I
where
think
did
it's 96.
100 come from?
Where did 100 come from?
100
where?
SB.
Certainly less than premium regular beer.
We divide 125 shower beer possibilities by the 1.25 average shower beers per week, which gets us to 100 shower beers per year.
Let's just agree that it's an approximation because some people just don't drink backwash.
It's also approximately 57,600 calories you've taken in just in the shower.
Wait,
Yeah,
if
but
you
the
have-
shower is working some off because you've taken a hot shower here.
Okay, 57,500.
if
Again,
you
it's a
have
6-year span, though.
1.25 shower beers per week, and you're drinking 50 weeks of the year, that's 62 shower beers, not 100.
I'm trying to see what your
about
math is. I don't get what you're mathing. I don't get that.
Well, you said there's 52 weeks in a year, minus 2 weeks if you're sick or you're not going out.
Exactly.
You average 1.25 shower
Yeah,
beers.
but see,
per
here's
week.
where you're doing it wrong. You have to get the 50 weeks times your 2.5 nights out per week. that gives you 125 shower beer possibilities, which then you
Per
average
week.
right, which then you get 1.25. And
Why
you
does it
subtract
slap
that.
though?
Just because I think it's the mix of the heat from the shower, the coldness of the Miller Lite, and then the anticipation of more Miller Lites post shower. That just gets you to a different
time,
place.
Miller time.
I'll tell you why it hits differently. It's because you're thinking about, hey, look, I can drink naked.
Yeah.
And then maybe if I go out, maybe I'll get naked and drink there too. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah. Well, well done.
Thank you. The math checks out, so I'm going to retire this.
That's good mathing over
thank
there.
you.
I was really hoping we could quantify
leave the board.
why
You don't have to-
it connects, but you did well.
I can only state why it hits different. I do the math on how many we can have.
Yeah,
naturally.
why it connects is more vibes.
Still a little
Exactly.
confused.
I'm
but
confused too.
it's
But
okay.
600, I mean, that's a big number. I wish he would have just ended with BAM! And then we could have transitioned right into the
We
next
can
topic.
transition right into BAM, and
I'm not Emerald.
I think many people think
You
that
weren't
I'm
cooking, though.
that I'm
Thank you.
anti-BAM, and I understand that because at times I've been like,
You and Brian Windhorst, anti-BAM for life.
I'm not anti-BAM. I just
Didn't Dan do something like that on PTI?
yeah, and it was like a whole thing with Emerald. I
Yes,
think
that's
yeah.
exactly it. Wait, we got to get the camera on Chris because he did it better than Dan
Oh
ever
man.
did.
Yeah.
Right, ready?
Camera on Chris. That was it.
I think BAM is an exceptional international center. I think he's a great center regardless. My whole thing with BAM is not even a thing on BAM. Is like I just want better talent around BAM because I think if you look at international basketball, you're seeing that he gets unlocked in ways. The Heat probably ask him to do too much, and his teammates are a little bit too limited. So I'm not anti-BAM. I'm anti not getting more help from BAM.
I've heard you talk about like he's willing to let anyone be the guy. That's why everyone wants to be here.
That's true.
We've taken shots at him. Like
Yeah.
he's on this team of stars, and I know it's a different style of play, but we got to give him his flowers.
I do, and I think that these are fair criticisms, and that I think a lot of alphas want to play in Miami, in part because BAM complements their skill set, and they know that they don't necessarily have to rip the team away from BAM. But on the international game, I think it actually gives my argument a little bit more steam in that if you put different type of players around him, better players around him, you get an even better BAM. And if you make BAM your third best player as opposed to arguably your first best player, now you're cooking.
Well, regardless of who's at fault, I'm not saying that you guys are responsible for the national discourse or perhaps international discourse about Bam Adebayo, but it made me laugh when Brian Windhorst got into this conversation. That's why I mentioned it to him, where he was talking about the South Sudan team and how they're athletic and they've got these wings that, your big guys are going to have to switch onto. And then he said somebody like Bam Adebayo might not get playing time or as much playing time because the whole discussion being Jason Tatum didn't play last time. He will play this time.
I'm a little confused by that, not to cut you off,
No,
but I think anytime I watch Joel Embiid start, and it seems as though they've tried to force feed Joel Embiid in the early going. I think out of the three bigs that are getting playing time on this team, Bam, Anthony Davis, and Joel, he's the one least equipped for the international game.
Joel.
Yeah, and I'd rather see Bam and Anthony Davis, who I think is probably underrated in this discussion, get more PT.
Which if you asked people who just watched any of Team USA or even just know international basketball at all and know how Joel Embiid plays, if you would have started with the premise that there's going to be more South Sudanese players, wings that need to be defended, immediately you have to think Joel Embiid is the guy of the bigs who's not going to get the minutes. The fact that Brian Windhorst, who knows more basketball than most people will ever know, he saying Bam would be the guy to sit just is mind-boggling to think that that is what the national opinion of him is when he is most suited to do that and, frankly, the best of those three bigs to do so.
We totally agree. I'd like to get Juju and Tony's thoughts on this because they know ball. Juju, what is your experience in watching Joel Embiid and understanding that you're more of a Celtics fan anyways, and I've heard you, but on the international game specifically with Joel Embiid, it seems as though he tries to lean on some stuff that he does in the NBA. It's not necessarily working out for him. You see defenders that are better equipped for the international game really taking advantage of the lack of 3 seconds, and I think that it kind of sticks out in the international game. Whatever gulf is there in the NBA between perceived gulf between Joel and Bam and Anthony Davis, it's not there in the international game. That's at least what my eyes are telling me.
For sure. I think that his style of play combined with his injuries that he has right now that he's fighting through, it just doesn't make sense for him to be here at all. I think someone like Paolo Banchero or just someone younger with fresh legs and just gold in their eyes, you dig me, would have been a better option. But it looks goofy at times in the international game because the referees ain't falling for that, man. You look crazy as hell falling out over this little man hitting your arm. You feel me? What you think, Tony?
I think that it's okay to have some players more suitable for an international game than an NBA game. Like that's the reason. Yeah. You don't think so, Izzy?
No,
like
I think so.
I think Joel is more suited for the NBA and what the NBA brings as far as the game style than he does internationally. He looks too big. He looks just in the middle of the lane.
He doesn't move enough.
He doesn't move enough. That's the thing. Like the Sixers have a very specific build to have Joel as their centerpiece. Team USA has 19 killers on him that can get a bucket at any second. Joel's just kind of clogged in the lane, always in the middle. Somebody's trying to drive, and he's just kind of there like, excuse me, sorry.
By the way, the U.S. has several times in recent history have gotten specialists that don't make all-star teams but show up on international basketball teams specific to certain roles.
But has it worked with a big? Like Joel.
The thing that sticks out specifically about Joel, outside of everything that we've outlined, is they're force-feeding him in the early going to get him in rhythm. And I kind of harken back to my experience watching soccer in that you have an athlete that had a choice to make. And it almost seems, although I don't think that international basketball is this competitive, like you almost made a promise to Joel Embiid that if he picked the United States, he would start, you would feed him the ball. Because I see that in soccer all the time, that if someone chose the United States over Germany, they're on that team sheet. They're one of the first names. They're going to get the opportunities here because that's sort of the recruiting promise that you made. Kind of like college basketball promises, college football promises. I just thought that Team USA in basketball would be above that because everyone's entering it with the same amount of ego. Maybe I'm naive for having that approach to it.
I think to Tony's point, the idea of there being specialists that is okay for the Olympic team, I think it makes all the sense in the world. There are enough rule changes between the NBA and international game to make it a different enough game that you don't just throw all the best NBA players in there. Like you mentioned about Joel Embiid not moving enough. That is the international game, man. There's not very many people just, unless it's on a major switch or something and it's obvious, that just dump it in and go to work. And so I think, you can do that without insulting the players. It could be the best player in the NBA. It just maybe doesn't work for Team USA.
It's why Melo was so good, right? Like he could get his game in the international game and be an all-star superstar at the Olympic and international level where, again, he was great in the NBA at what he did, but he could flow so much easier when there was more motion. It just feels like Joel's stuck in the mud.
I would rather see a guy like Jared Allen, for example. He has this trim body up and down the court, and he can knock them balls off of the rim like in national play.
Yeah. Are you saying specifically that you wouldn't even have Embiid on the roster? Because that's a take.
Yeah, I wouldn't have him on the roster if I'm the coaches. Why have Embiid on the roster? He's shown you like he's been through so much over the past couple of months, from the cerebral palsy to just the knee injury. Bro, rest up. You got PG-13 coming on the way, and the process should be trusted.
You mentioned the differences in the games, and I feel like I was just getting accustomed to how like the WNBA refs were using the whistle this season, and then now I'm watching the Olympics, and I don't know what the hell's going on. Like crazy. It is so physical, but even watching yesterday, it's sort of a similar conversation to the women's game. Like the U.S. is really good because Brianna Stewart and Asia Wilson run the floor, and they're super fast and long, and like they can kind of just play ahead of everyone else, and so it's giving them the advantage there. But I do not envy any coach that has to manage a roster with this many superstars on it. It's happening with men and women. Fans getting really upset. They're not seeing their favorite player play. They're not getting enough minutes. They're not getting enough time to get in rhythm, so they're just not shooting well to right off the bat, and then they're on the bench. Like, man, that has to be a really hard position to be in if you're a coach, because you want to win the game, but you want to keep players, healthy, and you want to keep people energized for the next round. But at the same time, you're managing egos, you're managing minutes. Like, it just seems like a complete, mental game right now.
I also don't want to just harp on Joel Embiid. I think it's a style thing with big men. 2004, Tim Duncan. Many people think he's the greatest big man ever. Did not do anything for that team.
That's Bell's policy, by the way. Sorry for that that incorrect assumption. Back to you, Michael.
Well, I don't know what the secondary ticket market is in Paris. I would love the opportunity to watch Team USA play meaningful games. I really wish Game Time were available for that. Thankfully, here in the United States, Game Time is available, and I've used it so much. You know that. Yeah, I mean, we made a Stanley Cup run that really made me tighten up my summer budget. No more trips until Gainesville, folks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code DAN for $20 off your first purchase. Why should you do this? Because you get to see what your seat looks like through their interface. You get low price guarantees, flash deals. It doesn't just work for sports. You can do it for concerts. Terms apply. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Again, redeem code DAN for $20 off your first purchase.
People
Love
ask me all
Game
the time, Mike, if I ever went to any of the Stanley Cup Finals games, and my answers have been pretty consistent. No, I went to one last year. They lost. This year I didn't go. But, boy, my buddy Mike sure spent a pretty penny on games 5 and 7, and I tell him that story real quick.
Yeah, I'm just now seeing the gravity of what I did. And, we'll make it to year's end. but
cancel Christmas.
Yeah, but thankfully I knew I had the best deals with Game Time there. But one of the things that I did during that Stanley Cup run was I consumed every bit of content that I could about hockey, the tremendous NHL playoffs, and two of the shows that I would turn to were 32 Thoughts and the Jeff Merrick Show. Jeff Merrick, a part of both, essentially co-hosting 32 Thoughts with Ellie Friedman, a tremendous reporter on the NHL side. He's basically Woj for the NHL. Jeff Merrick, even-keeled host, has covered the sport for so many years, and a lot of hockey fans like myself and Roy were bummed to hear this news. What was weird about the separation of Jeff Merrick and Sportsnet, because these shows are no longer going to exist with Jeff Merrick on them. Certainly it'd be tough for the Jeff Merrick Show to continue without Jeff Merrick. We had a lot more questions than answers, and it was very strange. And some reporters got to digging, and Roy read up on it. And so, Roy, I'm coming to you here to explain to me the very latest development on one of the more beloved characters that covers hockey.
All right, so we found out that Jeff Merrick was tipping the picks at the NHL draft, and apparently in Nevada they actually have sports books now dedicated to the NHL draft. He sent the tip picks to a friend of his. His name is Mark Seidel, who has a scouting service, and Seidel went to Twitter to correctly predict these draft picks. So the NHL went to the Nevada Gaming Control Board, and they both had separate investigations into the matter. And then we noticed between the NHL draft and last week that Jeff Merrick's content has slowly disappeared up until finally Sportsnet decided to part ways with Jeff Merrick because he was giving proprietary information to somebody outside of the company.
So it depends on how you view these things.
Didn't Schefter do this or somebody?
So
else,
like
right?
you could say that. Well, it seems as though there was a lot more. There was a lot more lead time. That's where I initially landed on this. I'm so we're penalizing Jeff Merrick for doing something that we celebrate, depending on how you view those things as spoilers. But that things that Woj and Shams and Schefter do routinely. But this investigation suggests that you have the gambling element here, in which the NHL, I certainly understand why they have to be more buttoned up here. But this also seems distinctly Canadian.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, well, behind the scenes with any draft, the league tells the production truck who the pick's going to be from the team before they announce it to the audience, so they can get the graphics ready, the video ready, the information about the player ready.
But we're talking about a lot more lead time, so much so that someone was able to actually win money on this inside information. So especially with someone of Jeff's reputation, there's a lot of integrity there.
They said that Jeff Merrick did not stand to having a financial gain from it.
No,
so.
and is it clear as to whether or not he knew that this information that he was giving would be used specific to gambling?
No, it's not.
And Jeff hasn't really been speaking about any of this.
Oh, he's been buttoned up. He hasn't said. He went on a social media. He did not say anything on social media about it up until when he said, "Hey, I'm leaving sports."
Yeah, my mind went to is how would this story go if this was one of the more prominent NBA writers? Because I actually think that they could survive something like this. Now ESPN has its own sports book, and we're in a very murky place. They're league partners. When you add the gambling aspect of this, I understand how it's further complicated. I do hope, just because I'm a fan of his, that Jeff not only has an opportunity to explain himself, because I do think that there's a difference as to whether or not he knew that the information that he was getting was going to be used like this. And even if he did, I think he's still the type of person that deserves a second chance, because I'm pro second chances. Also, selfishly, I was a huge fan of his work, and I would hate to see that go. They essentially broke up a Canadian Kornheiser and Wilbon here with Friedge and Merrick, and we lose because of this whole very unfortunate situation. Thanks for cleaning that up. And speaking of cleaning things up, I want to circle back to a really polarizing segment that I'm not necessarily proud of that we had about Coco Gauff earlier this week. Now, Coco Gauff, not a great Olympics for the co-flag bearer. Unfortunate there. I think Serena Williams really changed a lot of the math when it comes to women's tennis unfairly. Women's tennis in particular has always generally been, unless there's a GOAT atop of it, very difficult to predict, in part because the matches are shorter, but you have a lot of Grand Slam winners that are relative flashes in the pan. You don't have someone atop the sport like you had with Serena, but because Serena existed, everyone was looking for the next Serena. We've done this a couple of times, and we don't pay attention to how many times someone stumbles with that. And it's a lot of pressure that we're putting on these athletes in a sport that is relatively way more random than it is on the men's side. So, Izzy, let's circle back to the Coco thing that we were talking about. And I just want to say on the front end, I kind of feel like the general point that I was trying to make was missed. And that's my bad, because I didn't communicate it, and it became more of like a meltdown in sports. And I thought that my opinion came off a little dissenting when it was more of a mainstream idea. Basically, the point that I was trying to make, and I sincerely failed in doing so, was basically, I know that my daughter is going to face hardships when she plays sports. I know that there are going to be hormonal things as she gets older. There are going to be frustrations. There are going to be outsized reactions. I don't want this to be a data point fresh in her mind that if she encounters a hardship for a 4-year-old, the hardship could be, no, we're not going to go to Chuck E. Cheese right now, that a 10-minute breakdown saying this always happens to me isn't, because Coco did it, isn't an experience that you should borrow from. So I really missed the mark in being able to do that. And I really have my regrets in saying like things like you guys don't really have children here. But I think that is a contributing factor as to how like that message was missed, because I was working under the assumption that was assumed.
So first of all, when we're talking about women's sports, I don't say hormonal. Don't don't be one of the first things you bring up. No. That's just going to be jumped all over.
Yeah, no,
I know what you mean.
I understand that. I mean, like with a 4-year-old, I know that my daughter is going to change. There are both things that we can control. It could be a boy or a girl. They could control their emotions, whatever you want to talk about. I get that. All right, fair enough.
But the part about like, I'm taking sports out of it. And I said this the other day. I felt like you, me, and Jess the other day were almost having 2 or 3 different conversations, because I'm taking the sports out of it. And all I'm saying is, as a father, and I have a bunch of nieces and nephews, I've raised kids that aren't even mine. You expecting your daughter to be perfectly formed as she goes along, regardless of who she learns it from, is naive. She's going to learn bad habits, bad behavior, bad something from somebody. It could be anybody. As a parent, if I'm watching her potentially learn that from somebody who, even if it's somebody that she thinks is somebody that she should look up to, I'm glad I'm there. I'm glad I'm there because I want her to see it. I want her to learn from it. And even if you're saying at this age she can't handle all that, fine. Maybe she takes it, downloads it, and it comes out back in the future, and you can be like, haha, I know where this is coming from. I was there. I watched that happen. So you have more knowledge as a parent on what your daughter is going through, what she's seen, and what she's experienced. If you shield her from Coco, she might see it in school from somebody else where you don't even have the good fortune of being there to know how she took that in.
Understood. All good points. And I would say that I think I'd surprise you with how well equipped I am for very difficult conversations and random questions that a 4-year-old would ask.
But I said that to you the other day. I said, if that's what your experience is and that's what you believe, you and your daughter are prepared for at the moment, fine. Yeah. I'm not opposed to that. What I'm saying is you're speaking for in general, and I feel like that is probably a little too strong from your side.
So here's where my point missed the mark, in that you explained that to me, and I think where you're missing the mark is I know all those things.
Okay.
I know that there are certain things I can't control. I know that there are things that could affect my daughter's behavior and how she reacts to things that I'm going to have to react to in real time. There are also things that I can control. For example, there was this YouTube show that she was watching on YouTube Kids where I didn't like how the children were speaking to the parents in this, and I started seeing her behavior replicate that of what she was seeing there. So Coco is not a catch-all, but Coco is a data point that in that moment I could have manipulated. In that moment, my thought process was like, let me establish a diversionary tactic here, because not unlike this YouTube show that I saw where I didn't like how the parents were talking to the kids, I don't want to have a very recent example where my daughter sees this reaction, and because she is 4 and because she recognizes Coco, may replicate that behavior, because in a world filled with things that I cannot control, this is one instance in which, as a parent, I had decisions to make.
Sure.
And I thought I navigated it well. And where I erred was I was explaining my thought process instead of actually really trying to detail how I dealt with it, which was I played with slime.
But this is to Jess's point. I'd like to hear her opinion on this part. This isn't Coco Gauff's fault. There's a difference between sport and a produced show that is aimed for kids. Coco Gauff is not out there thinking, I have to think about the 4-year-olds out there. She might think about it afterward.
Yeah,
and
she might think about it other times.
But at the time, that is not her, at the moment, responsibility.
I don't think I have anything to add. We were on the same page with it, and you said the other day that, yeah, like she had a bad day. Athletes have, bad moments sometimes, and I agreed with you, and I thought we kind of like were on the same page with that. And it's not her responsibility to be a good role model as she's playing a game.
No.
Because she's thinking that there's a kid somewhere watching her. Like, there's just all of these assumptions about women and female athletes that get made all the time, that they're supposed to be role models and they're supposed to look pretty and look feminine. And it's the same conversation we had earlier today about boxing, is that you make all of these assumptions about what women are supposed to be, and then when they go out there and compete and people don't like what they see because it doesn't fit their ideals of what is supposed to be happening, everyone gets angry and mad at it.
Yeah, I wasn't angry or mad, and like
you looked at me with angry Nicolas Cage face.
Because I think there was something that Jess said in particular that maybe my daughter isn't ready for sport, and my daughter celebrates sports. My daughter actively participates in them, has tremendous relationships with athletes,
Mike,
and
have
has
trouble
plenty
with sports as adults. Yeah. We don't know how to handle it sometimes.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
but I would say, like, in a vacuum, outsized reaction, and not a dissenting opinion, especially when in other variations of that sport, your reaction can shape potentially the decision there. It wasn't about that. And if you watched in that moment, it was clear that it was about other things there. So while I appreciate everybody's perspective, and I think I bridged some gaps here because we coded like we're on the same page, which kind of alludes that I'm on a different page. I think we're all on the same page, and we're all seeing everybody's perspective.
We're having different conversations. You can have a conversation about the difficulties of parenting and not start the conversation by saying Coco Gauff effed up and I had to hold my kid to the side for not watching it.
I agree. If someone said that, I would understand that. I didn't. I just explained a situation that I ran into as a parent, and in a rare instance thought I could control a situation, and you disagreed.
But you called her a bad role model, and that was where we started arguing.
Jess, I didn't.
You did.
No, Jess, I didn't. In fact, you invoked role model. In fact, what I thought was,
what?
In
I
fact,
didn't
you
make
see
that
some.
up.
All right,
what are you talking about?
Jess, I understand the role model conversation, and I thought that I had a pretty good response in that. It's convenient for us to pick and choose when someone is a role model, because I think Coco, in moments with my daughter where she hit an autographed ball to her, was very cognizant of being a role model. And I understand to project that onto any athlete. And this is not a woman thing, even though I'm not ignoring that as part of the discussion. It's impossible to uphold that standard. It's impossible for me to uphold that standard. I check my behavior around my daughter all the time because it's something that I can control. This was an instance in a world full of things that I can't control that I felt like I could. So I ran a diversionary tactic because, as with any 4-year-old, as many people will know, as you may know with your nieces and nephews, they replicate behavior almost instantly sometimes. Yeah. And that was a behavior in that moment that I did not want my daughter replicating.
Mike, I am telling you, as I said that day, as I'm saying today, I am not saying that that was a bad choice by you, and I'm not disagreeing with you that that is what most parents would do. But in Jess's defense, as I sat here listening to you, whether or not you said the word role model, that's what came across in what you were saying.
Yeah, no, I
So
probably
we're
said
just
role
trying
model
to-
there.
Right, so we're
Yeah.
just trying to get that across to you.
There are no
so that,
infallible role models.
Right.
They're, and I understand that. And I understand that this is a moment in time where I could spin this into a positive. And what I'm saying is there's a lot of fatigue with that. The world is throwing stuff at us constantly. And whether you're controlling something that's on a YouTube algorithm or trying to run a diversionary tactic with slime, there are certain things that you can control. And in that moment, I wasn't prepared to explain to my daughter as to why Coco Gauff had an outsized 10-minute breakdown that anyone in the sport would tell you was outsized.